Welcome back to Starting Point on TVRI World with me, Siska Becker, my partner Uli Herdi.
Hi, hi.
And as we promised before, we now have our special guest joining us in the studio.
So yeah, let me do the intro.
Yes, please.
Okay. Climate change and threats of depleting fossil fuel-based energy has led the world to swift to sustainable and renewable energy sources. Indonesia is not an exception. Indonesia has in the past few years been focusing on strengthening energy transition to sustainable and renewable energy. To get to know more about the issue, joining us is Mr.Lucky Nurrahmat, Indonesia Country Lead of the Global Energy Alliance for the People and Planet, or GEAPP.
Yes.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Morning.
Can you tell us a little bit about GEAPP for our viewers who doesn't who's not familiar about it?
GEAPP is an alliance, as you mentioned, of philanthropy, governments, financiers like multinational development banks or development finance institutions that focus on energy transition, especially in developing countries.
Okay, so you're the country lead for Indonesia.
Correct.
So that's the whole Indonesia. Which areas that you usually take care of?
So we take care of the operation of the whole Indonesia, but of course we're focusing on what we call the last mile population.
The last mile population.
Correct.
So
the underserved, remote areas, islands, and we also work with either central government and also local government to increase access while also reducing emissions.
What was the last 3 places that you visited recently in Indonesia?
I went to Bali, and then nearby Bali, right? Lombok and Maluku, right? There are some islands that still need more access to clean energy, since many of them are now relying with diesel power.
Okay. Now, based on your experiences leading the GEAPP office in Indonesia and from your knowledge, how is the progress of Indonesia's energy transition? What would your observation be?
Yeah, I think it's encouraging. First, we of course we know that Indonesia is important, right? It's fourth most population in the world, and as such, of course, the energy consumption is also high. Like we are the biggest consumers of energy in Southeast Asia. So and we still also rely on fossil fuel as of now. But it's very encouraging because now the government has set net zero emission for power sector or electricity sector by 2050. And they also had set some regulations to accelerate renewable energy, like Presidential Regulation number 112. And they have some initiatives like coal-fired power plant retirement. And we also have many actually international supports like Just Energy Transition Partnership, which commits around 21.5 billion for supporting Indonesia energy transition. And it's a private and public G7 countries along with Indonesia government, so that Indonesia can shift to renewable energies. So it's encouraging, although of course there are some challenges, but it's a really encouraging sign.
What are those challenges that you feel that we should try to overcome in the near future and also in the long term?
Sure. We see that now our power sectors still around 85% is from fossil fuel, and mainly coal. So that is our challenge because coal is the biggest emitter, and the other side of it, coal and fossil fuel also provides many jobs, right? And we are as an economy still dependent on fossil fuel and commodities, right? So the challenge is how do we transition while we still develop and not leaving people behind, because we are also still dependent with fossil fuel.
So what are the strategies that we can see from other countries that has been going through the same issue as in Indonesia? How did they transition from that to a more renewable energy, while at the same time also taking care of the people and not leaving them behind.
I think one example who is quite successfully have done it, although it's an ongoing process, of course, like China.
Yeah.
They were like very dependent on coal just 10 years ago.
Yes.
Now they are transitioning quite smoothly into clean energy. What can we learn from them?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit fortunate now because the renewable energy price, especially solar and wind, has been decreasing in recent years, right? So 10 years ago, we don't see many people using rooftop solars, right?
Sure.
Now we see it everywhere in Jakarta.
Some people are even proud of being off the grid, you know.
Correct. Not connected at all, no cable.
Connected at all, and they, and they can live sustainably for a long time.
Yes,
you know, so.
with only renewable energy. So that's we're fortunate with. Some of the strategy that also the government of Indonesia deploy is, of course, they provide fiscal support, they provide policy incentive, right? The other strategy is we need to engage international communities like the government of Indonesia is doing now, because there are a lot of parties, a lot of countries that really care about energy transition and reduction of emission. And they are willing to provide concessional financing, so or even grants, like our organization provides catalytic finance, we call it, grants and concessional financing, so loan with a low interest rate, so that we can accelerate our energy transition. And of course there are some technology advance as well that we can deploy. Now we can deploy solar energy, not only the solar PV and wind, but also completed them with batteries. Yes, so we can store the energy because renewable energy is intermittent, right? When there is no sun, then we cannot have energy. But then with battery, we can store it, and then we can use it later during the night or during the time when the energy is low.
Okay. Now, one of the challenges many people say when it comes to the technology that is used for sustainable energy that is not yet familiar, especially for people, you know, who you mentioned as the last mile people. They are more familiar, you know, with the old ways, with the conventional energy. With so how do you make it more inclusive, these technologies, these ways of, you know, new living with the sustainable energy?
I think that then local and community engagement is very, very important. Right? We need to engage not only central government, but also local government, because they set the policy. They can give supports for community initiatives like you mentioned, mini grid or off-grid system, right?
I love that.
All the rage in some areas.
Correct. So we need to hear from them, right? What are their difficulties and how do we address them? And in terms of financing, they also should get priorities, right? Where many renewable energy projects are commercial and they don't need like public finance support, but for them, they need government money, they need public money, they need philanthropic money, so that they can accelerate their energy transition. And also, I think once you deploy it, you can like almost immediately see the impact. Like you have genset with diesel, and it's dirty, right? It's polluted. And then you change with solar PV and battery, and suddenly you have a clean air, right? And less polluted, and you have less respiratory illness, right? Something like that.
At least based on your experiences, you've had this input from the communities that you've reached out to.
So we try small, right? And then once they see it, this is actually better. They get a more reliable electricity, because previously it's only 4 hours, 8 hours, depending whether you have diesel or not. Right now, with battery, it can be more longer hours, even 24 hours, like we have, right? Which we should have. I think all Indonesians should have an equal access, 24 hours access to electricity.
That is really interesting. Do you have any stories? You've been working with a lot of communities all over Indonesia. Do you have any interesting stories that you find memorable working with these communities all over Indonesia about this issue?
What we saw, and this is just one example. like productive use of energy.
Okay.
So like fishermen in remote outer island areas, they don't have fridge, they don't have refrigerator.
Oh, that's
Okay.
true, because they have to keep the fish
Yeah.
fresh
Correct.
and
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah. And what they
Right.
do is they procure ice cubes, right? Around 2 hours or 3
Right.
hours from
Okay.
nearby cities, and then put them, right? Now
Okay.
with renewable energy, we can develop some sort of solar PV
Yeah.
with it connect with some system so that you can have some cold chain.
Oh.
So some sort of fridge.
For cold storage.
Yes,
Okay.
for
Wow.
cold storage, so that they don't need to sell as immediate, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
now
yeah.
they now
can
can
store it
store
first,
it,
yeah.
right? They now can then if you can store it, then you can manage your inventory, you can manage when to sell, and meaning like
Okay.
more income.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah,
So,
so-
obvious advantages
Correct.
from
correct.
those
Yes.
sustainable energy
Correct.
transitions.
Yeah.
Now, people say also what makes it so hard to leave the conventional energy, the fossil fuel energy behind is because what you said in the beginning, it creates so many jobs.
Yeah.
So how can we make sure that the transitioning into new sustainable energy can also do the same thing, create new job opportunities?
Will it though?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Is there a possibility? Because that's
Yeah.
what the world leaders are saying.
Right.
Yeah,
It will
yeah,
create new jobs. It will
But will it?
a source of sustainable livelihood.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible in Indonesia, though?
I think first we need to understand that energy is development,
Right.
Okay.
And we experience this ourselves when I was a kid, right? And back then, I was not too wealthy or a little bit poor, right? And then we don't have much access to electricity and much access to electrical appliances, right? But then as you grow, as you get richer, then you buy, I don't know, microwave, and you
Okay.
have
Appliances,
so
yeah.
yeah. So as the GDP grows, energy consumption will also grow.
Okay.
Now the question is that sustainable, right? With the current trajectory and current condition of Indonesia, if we keep it that way, Indonesia will keep emitting CO2, right?
Okay.
So that's why we need to grow, we need energy, and we need to shift the energy to
Okay.
more sustainable energy, which is energy transition. So in itself, inherently, it will create jobs, and as it creates jobs, it creates more demand for energy and sustainable energy. There is also more demand for manufacturing of the solar PV, manufacturing of wind power, and also Indonesia is also big on commodity, right? And we see nickel is a main input for battery. So we also have downstream facility which we also will create jobs.
All right.
So this is will also create jobs and I think it's a new path of growth for Indonesia.
Is it a new kind of jobs too, though? I mean,
Green
know.
jobs, right?
Green jobs.
Green jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there should be also a change in how the country is training their
Exactly,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
their
Human
people,
resource,
so people
right?
could transition
Yeah.
from whatever jobs they have
Exactly.
to greener
Exactly.
jobs. And,
Yes.
But that requires also a different skill set.
Exactly. Exactly. Because now I think we're dependent on fossil fuel, and what you were alluding to, you need retraining, you need rescaling, you need new type of skills so that you can participate in this new green growth, right? Green energy, and of course, if you have the demand, if you have some financiers, some manufacturers that need this job, then the supply will follow, right? And then you will have education system that also produce renewable energy engineers, for example, or operators that can well versed in operating renewable energy equipment.
Okay.
So how big is the demand for that at the moment, and how urgent is it?
I think it's growing now. Now it's around 12%, but we see a lot of new projects for renewable energy. So and the government's ambition is to reach from 12% to 34% of
Oh wow, that's still a
it's double, more than double
the number.
In 2030, right?
You think that's achievable?
Oh yeah. I think with international collaboration and with the government's willingness, and also we see that communities are also now more aware, right, about the energy and renewable energy.
And GEAPP, are you providing only the technology, or actually you guys are also doing a lot of education and all the other stuff for the people that these last miles places of the country?
So we provide financing and enablement or technical assistance.
Technical assistance,
correct.
Right.
What does technical assistance mean?
Technical assistance is you work with communities, you work with government, and you work together with them so that they all together become a stronger actor in delivering energy transition.
Is it always, has it always been a smooth sailing process, or sometimes there are some resistance as well? And if there was, what was the story?
I think in general we see a lot of happiness welcome from the government because they understand that this is an urgent issue that we need to address, climate change, and it's real. Now it's very hot out there, and we have a long dry season, so people are more aware.
It's no longer global warming now.
Right?
It's global heating. It's global
heating, and you see that the weather event, like, it's very fluctuative now. Right?
Unpredictable.
Unpredictable. Suddenly you have a heavy rain and then long dry season. So people are more aware and generally welcome. Generally very welcome, and even longing, right, waiting for this to happen.
It's good to know.
That's very encouraging. Now, from working with small communities, communities that really needs to be empowered to get out of energy poverty, to get the access, to reach that term of affordability for everything that they need to be sustainable. Of course, we wanted to go national, as in it becomes the way to live, way of living. How long you think would it take for everyone to work together to make sure that this is not just a niche way of living, an elite kind of way of living, but becomes like a norm?
Mainstream.
Right. We see traction, definitely. Right. Like we see a lot of rooftop solar power, right? And I think it's also economic in the end. Now it's actually cheaper to install rooftop solar panel in your house than what you pay to the utility, actually, right? And once it's cheaper, and we can also provide some sort of financing and grants, right? So that it becomes much more affordable. Because even though it's cheaper for us, it doesn't mean that it's cheaper for the rest of Indonesian, right? They still need help. Right, so with that, then the economic works. Then it just makes sense for us to shift to renewable energy, because why not? Right, it's cheaper, it's better, and it's less polluting. It's much more sustainable.
Now, we also hear a lot from President Joko Widodo, who repeatedly said that Indonesia is very abundant when it comes to clean energy sources. Do you think that it also can be an advantage for us as Indonesians?
Yes, and it's very underutilized now. A lot of potential, but why we keep relying on coal and fossil fuel, right? There's a lot of potential that we can tap in and we can leverage.
And so far, do you feel like the government has been giving enough support for this change to happen, or you feel like still you're still waiting for some rules to be changed so that this could be a more mainstream thing for everybody on the country?
We see a lot of good traction. Including some policy changes, actually. So there are some incentives for renewable energy. Some regulations are also changed.
Do you feel it's enough?
There are, so in the GEAPP process, right? They also identified some of policy changes, and we're really keen to see the implementation of these policy changes, because it's all good. the recommendation, and GEAPP is also, part of the government.
What makes the implementation a bit harder, probably in some cases?
Yeah.
We need some time. There is government process,
Right.
there is political process, right? And we are now nearing the election, so
That's true.
so,
Which can also be an opportunity.
Actually,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. I think if I see and I read some of the programs of the candidates, they're all very supportive of renewable energy and green energy.
That's good to know, because a lot of young people are voting for the next election. Millennials,
and they're quite aware of these
they're very
issues
aware.
as well,
It's a big issue for them. So it'll be very important to hear what the candidates has to offer when it comes to clean energy transition, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I want to go back to the financing part that is provided by GEAPP. Could you explain to us what's the mechanism of finding communities that you'll be able to help financially with these projects? Like, do you choose them or people apply? How does it work?
We have focus program, one of them being renewable energy and distributed renewable energy, meaning renewable energy that is typically implemented in rural areas and in island areas. So we work with our partners.
The governments?
Multinational development banks, development finance institutions, private sector.
To do the funding, to give the funding.
To give the funding, and together with the partners to deliver the projects, right? And we sometimes we also actively look for underserved communities, and we see partners that can also actually implement with us in those communities.
So there's a lot of research involved then.
Correct.
Now, from all parts of Indonesia, we know that Java is very advanced when it comes to development. How about other areas? Which ones are actually in dire need of improvements?
Yeah, exactly. Now we always see that Indonesia is very well electrified, like 99%. But actually, some of our sisters and brothers in outer islands, in remote islands, in Maluku, in Timor, in Papua, right? It's an island, so even the access to them, it's very difficult, right? And it's also much more expensive compared to Java, right? So they need financing, they need catalytic finance, they need our support all so that they can also access clean energy.
So how long usually is the process from a community from the start that you start to realize that they need help until the realization of finally having a facility for them to use? How long usually are the process?
Compared to fossil fuel power, it's actually much faster. Because if you develop coal-fired power plant, you need a lot of study, and you need to secure financing in advance.
Okay, get it. So the scale can also be quite small.
It's modular. It's modular. Exactly.
It can be small. It can be big. It depends on the needs.
It's like plug and play. It's like Lego, right? You can start
like Lego.
Exactly. You can start with small, and then there is more need. Then you can add more, right? So installation itself typically like 3 months, 6 months can be done.
So typically it's solar, or do you guys also do other kinds of?
We do most of renewable energy. We look at solar, we look at wind. We also look at Indonesia is rich with geothermal, and also like
and
Jokowi
all are
mentioned.
modulars?
Solar and wind can be modular. Geothermal and hydro.
Or like the rivers that President Joko Widodo mentioned earlier.
What's the biggest community that you guys ever worked with in Indonesia? Like how many people that is in that community?
We're now still exploring. We work with PLN. To potentially address around 62 sites, meaning 62 island, right? 62 sites that we can then work together.
So there are probably hundreds of people in each of those sites, or thousands. I mean,
or thousands
of people in those sites.
So quite extensive.
It's really interesting. So you guys are developing sustainable energy for the people to use, and then if it's too much energy, you can send it back to the grid, or?
Yeah. We work with PLN. So they are very reliable partner as well, right? And they generally know how to implement. And of course, they will also accept the surplus of energy to be channeled to other
redistributed.
Correct.
So a lot of stakeholders are actually
a lot of stakeholders. It's an alliance.
So I'm interested to know actually, because GEAPP is an international organization, right? Now we mentioned earlier how Indonesia have learned a lot from other countries when it comes to clean energy transition. But have your experience here working with people from all over the world make you realize that there's something Indonesia can also teach other countries when it comes to clean energy? What do you think is the one lesson from Indonesia that can be, conveyed to other countries?
I think the process in Indonesia, because we are a democratic country, it's very inclusive. So we engage a lot of stakeholders. We do public consultations. We really listen and let even people can protest here, right? And generally the government is then responsive to that. So that's one thing that the world can learn, because you need, as you mentioned, an inclusive and just energy transition. The second thing is some of the technology, because we are an archipelago. There are technology that is applicable in island that can also be transferred to elsewhere.
So logistic-wise,
logistic-wise, how to deal with it. What is the sizing of the system? How do you reduce the cost? And there are a lot of other archipelago like Philippines or in Pacific Island in which we can also share our learnings.
Right. So for our viewers who wants to know more about your organization, how can they find them? Are you on social medias or
we
websites?
Are at energyalliance.org. In every social media, also energyalliance.org. And happy to connect and happy to connect and talk with you on an accelerating energy transition in Indonesia.
That is fantastic.
Wow,
That's
thank
such a
you
great time
so
talking
much,
to you. Thank you so much for
Cool.
being here.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, of course. All the best, Mas.Lucky.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the great work that you and your organization have done.
Thank you.
In Indonesia.
We're just starting, but thank you.
All right.
Okay, so let's take a break. Stay close, and Starting Point will be right back.